Yo! What's up, YouTubers? Have you been going out there getting them? I don't know. Have you been suffering? Well, that would be good. Sweet. You're expanding. You're growing. You're maturing. Right on. Okay, so I just watched the deal, and oh boy, he's talking about joy, the biblical definition of joy, and Paul says, "Count it all as joy when you fall into various trials and stuff, knowing that the testing of your faith leads to all this good stuff, right?" And there's several things where, like, even Jesus, like praying in the garden, he's like, "Father, if there's any way, take this cup of suffering away from me, but your will be done, not mine," right? And like so that's like the ultimate suffering, like knowing you're fixed to get crucified and just like gonna let it happen anyway. You know what I mean? Just to stay your hand and let yourself be crucified when you can call down 10,000 angels. When you can do less than the effort of blinking to exterminate the galaxy. You know what I mean? Just like no more Earth. Like just transcend to the beginning and be like, hey, yeah. You know what I mean? Like he's gone. You know? Okay, so but he stuck it out through that, fully human. You know what I mean? Count it all joy as you fall into these various trials. Well, the guy's explaining that, and he does a great job of pointing out how the trials and the forcing of maturity and all this kind of stuff. So I'm gonna kind of go over what he was talking about in the New Living Skipper edition, right? We suffer. Man, do we suffer, right? And we don't like that. Okay, so, but we like the results. Okay, so like our parents send us to school and we don't want to go to school. We don't want to learn how to tie our shoes. We don't want to, like, we don't like the food in front of us when we're little babies in the high chair, slinging stuff everywhere, just being like a little monster, right? And through time and maturity and some paddling, we grow into people that have boundaries. Okay, we mature. The word we're looking for throughout this video will be mature. Okay, and we know that we have a creator. We know that there is a way, a truth, and a life, and we know that that is the best. We know that the creator has a individual specific plan for us. Okay, now how do we know this stuff? Because we suffered through reading the Bible 57 times or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, you put time and effort, reps and cents into studying the Bible, right? Like, that's suffering. Okay, so when you're put to the test and you show integrity to do it God's way, like you know God's will because you read the book. Okay, well in the book he's like, do this, do that, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And then proceeds to give example throughout history of the people who got it right, got it wrong. It might be the same guy that was doing it right for a while, then got wrong. And, you know, some stuff was, you know, severely wrong, lose your life. And some stuff was like weird because they were in a different culture, but like, God really didn't see a problem with that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the 12 tribes of Israel come from a guy that had 2 wives and some concubines. You know what I mean? Like, that ain't going to fly at the Baptist church. You know what I'm saying? So, different culture, okay? Who's right, who's wrong? It's the 12 tribes of Israel, man. They were the chosen ones by God. Like, I ain't God, okay? So like, it takes a lot of suffering to figure that out, right? So in all this, we become selfless because right now we're kind of selfish. You know what I mean? You might even be a little Jew-ish because you're like adopted into the tribe of Judah through your baptism and all that. There's a lot of people I know that are Baptists that don't realize that. You know what I mean? Because their maturity level only goes to a certain point, and then it stops. They're like, oh, well, I got this figured out. But God, you can't figure it all out. So you have to press on and press deeper. Go on, go deeper. You know what I mean? Figure this thing out. Okay, back to joy. The definition of joy: a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. A similar word, delight. Rejoice. You know, we're going to leave rejoice out of there because I don't even know why it says that on that thing. But the dictionary, according to the Oxford Languages, which is in England, and it's English. So we're going to go with this definition that says a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. So you're in the trial. He said count it as joy. So another place in there it says if you're going to build a house, you should count the cost before you begin to build. That way you don't build halfway and then you won't be able to finish it and then everybody look at you and make fun of you. Right? So you're going to have trials. Jesus said if you do what I do, you're going to get what I got. They crucified him. They killed all the disciples. All right? So when you're counting the cost of this, count this as joy and pleasure. So you're going to suffer. It's going to be hard. But when you realize there's another part that says, do not suffer as a sinner. You know what I mean? So he's not talking about, like, you know, you go out and you knock somebody in the head, take their purse, and run off, and you get caught, you're in jail for being a purse snatcher. That's just, you're just getting what you got. That's get right time. You know what I mean? You need to pay your dues or whatever. You should not take pleasure in that. Okay, now let's say that there's a situation and you intervene. Like some lady's getting carjacked. You try to help her and you get the crap beat out of you. In that moment that you're getting beat up or whatever, and then you're suffering, trying to heal up after the fact, you're going to have a feeling of like, you know what? I did the right thing. And you know God likes that, right? And that's why you have that good feeling. So a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. So I'm feeling pleasure and happiness, even though I beat the crap. I'm feeling pleasure and happiness because I did the right thing and I showed integrity. That's a trial. Okay, so like Paul, you know, he's writing these books. He's like in a pit. He don't have food or whatever else like that. Another place, like him and this other boys in the jail singing, and like an angel walks through the wall and the chains fall off and they're like, come on, get out of here. And he stops and talks to the guard and he's like, hey, don't worry about it, bro. You know what I mean? Because they kill the guards if the prisoners were gone or whatever. You know what I mean? And but they made a provision for that too or whatever. And then like you'll see these shipwrecked, battered, bruised, boiled alive, all these different things. You know, it's gonna in my own life, I'm driving down the road, I have a flat. I'm trying to let patience have its perfect work, so I'm complete, lacking nothing. And I have a flat. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks God, appreciate this. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh man, I'm being sarcastic, and you know, I had a deep conviction that I was being like that, talking to God. And I'm like, man, I better not do that. You know what I mean? And it wasn't the fear of God kicking in. It was my love of God kicking in. Like, you know, like if I was being snotty and sarcastic with a friend or something like that. You know what I mean? And then, you know, and other times, you know, there's situations and I have to go through that. And then knowing that I've gone through that, like living in this truck, dude, trying to bring your gospel to whatever's up ahead. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I wound up with medical supplies that's got, the paperwork's all weird. And they changed where I'm delivering twice already. And nobody will call me back and give me the straight about it because they don't know. I'm assuming. Whatever. And then the clock's messed up, so. And then the town I'm going to is, you know, one stop's over here, the next stop's over here, right here in the middle, Washington, D.C., right where Trump just took over. You know, basically, you know, like, what am I walking into? You know, it's like, I made a video this morning before I seen any of this stuff, or decided to make this video. I'm just like, I walked across the street, the worst place I've ever, well, a bad place, you know. I told that lady, I said, there ain't no paper in the men's room. If you want to give me the paper, I'll put it in there and just save you the trauma. You know, like, don't go in there. Just wait till somebody, just finish your shift. Don't even go in there. It's traumatizing to see the men's room. Terrible. I don't know what is wrong with people. Yeah. To just count it all joy. Like, you suffered. Yeah. But you see the traumatizing walls of this bathroom stall. Gross. But taking that paper in there for that lady. On the way back in there, on round 2, walking into the unspeakable conditions, I felt a sense of joy. I'm happy right now. Like, I'm starting to laugh about it, you know, because I'm trying to say it right and everything. But I really felt like I was doing the right thing. Like, God put me there in that moment to take that toilet paper in there and put it in there so that lady didn't have to see all that. You know what I mean? Like I do have a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. You know what I mean? And that joy of the Lord is our strength, right? So it's critical when we're explaining count it all joy that we take it all the way. You gotta follow the thought all the way through. You can't half-step this deal and just leave the crowd with, it's gonna suck, pretend you're happy. Or the actual definition of joy is, I'm suffering. That's incorrect. And it takes the vitality out of the kinfolk. Because the kinfolk need a great feeling of pleasure and happiness in doing God's will through the situation that is bringing out travail in their prayer. You know, when it gets to the point where your prayer is travail and you're in God's will and you're experiencing a feeling of great pleasure and happiness, joy, you know, he said count it as joy, right? So when you decide to build this thing, this part over here where you suffer, count that as joy, because yeah, you're going to suffer and you're not going to like that. That's going to be your emotional state of, I'm getting beat down physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever. And spoiler alert, the devil seeks to wear out the saints. However, God turns what was meant for evil into good. So should we sin that grace abound? No. Should we count this as joy, knowing that joy's coming? Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. As a snot-nosed kid living in a truck, everything in my life's perfect, so I'm happy. No, my life sucks. It is, dude. You think you're going to go out and make $1 million and have this, that, and the other, or whatever? You know what I mean? And then, like, you end up eating rice, living in the parking lot. You know what I mean? Hey, but laying down selfless. Not selfish, selfless. I must decrease and let him increase. How does that happen, Skip? Well, I read the Bible and I see these things. And these people are just getting tore up, man. And like eternally sent to flame. And I'm like, I should not do that. Okay? So like he just comes right out and says it. Hey, it's like this, it's like that. Then examples. Get to the back. Grace. Cool. Alright. So like, here's what you're supposed to do. Sir, yes, sir. Everybody's messed it up. I messed it up. I've done that too. Oh, I messed that up too. Oh, this, that. I can't do this. Surely this is not too hard. Surely he's tougher than I am. I don't know. Anyway, get to the back. Oh, there's Grace. Wow. Jesus died for me. I look at the law of atonement. I look at the sacrifice. It's complete. It's eternal. It is for me. I accept that. There you there. And now he's like, go live in the parking lot. There you there. I don't have to, you know, like out of the mouth of babes. I mean, like, you don't have to be super intellectual, but you have to be dedicated, and you need follow through when you're going to present something as critical to the family as joy. And it takes some critical thinking on this situation because it's so big. You've heard the phrase, can't see the forest for the trees. I'm saying, so many trees and dots, all this crisscross and whatever, I'm lost in the woods. You know what I mean? You know, I realize those are trees. I know I'm in a forest. I'm trying to build a cabin, right? You know what I mean? So like, I'm gonna need a little help here, God. So, grammar. I was watching this thing, and this guy was talking about translating the Bible, and he said he was doing from like German to English or whatever. From what, you know, and it was a translate. He wasn't even coming from the original, but he was going, you know, he was like taking like a German Bible and making it English or whatever. I forget the two languages. Point being, this guy says, "Oh, well, you don't have a German problem. You understand that. You have a grammar problem." And I'm like, what is grammar? What is this grammar you speak of? Then I realized I didn't suffer enough in English class, and that lady that was so mad for some reason. Well, I said 8. Turns out she's the key to my salvation. And like, you know, thank you, English teachers. Hats off to English teachers. Anyway, so that deal, he said, I'll read this deal or watch this show, whatever, and the old boy's like, you don't have a German problem, you have a grammar problem. So the guy went back, so he quit even looking at the German, and he went back to English, and he started at the basics of grammar, like punctuation, what's an adverb, what's a noun, you know, and all these different things. And so if you go back and you look, he says, count these as joy. He doesn't say these experiences are joy. Now, the definition of joy, a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. Now, if I go through a trial and I make it through, and my integrity stands up, and I've, you know, stood the test, I'm going to have a feeling of great joy. Man, I did it, God. I did it, God. You laid it out there. I followed the plan. I stuck to it. You know what I mean? So, like, you're on the football field and you're taking the hits and everything else like that. You might be the guy on the sideline. Never even got put in the game. But when there's a win, there's this, you know, joy. You're joyful. There's all these milestones of joy. But there's all these places of pain. And then as you're building the kingdom, you have to be able to count that part as joy because you trust that God will get you through it. And then when you actually experience that, based on your age and stage, the ones in the future are going to get harder. You know what I mean? The ones you don't learn, you're going to go around that mountain again and again and again until you figure it out. And that's super duper difficult for a guy like me to watch. Holy cow. And once you see it in everybody, once you see it, then you're like, oh wow, this is what I did to God. And then you realize God's watching everybody go around the same mountain needlessly, unnecessary, completely unnecessary, which is incredibly frustrating. You know what I mean? And then, like, he's suffering through watching us mess it up. You know, Jesus brought the grace. And I'm just like, I am happy, man. I'm like, let's sing a song about how good Jesus is. You know what I mean? And, you know, how about this maturing into Christ likeness? How about this knowing God's heart and seeing it from his point of view? Just be like, hey, Dad, I feel you on this one. Thank you for cutting me some slack. I didn't realize that, like, you know, you're telling me for 40 years, that guy, for 40 years, I didn't realize that it's counted as joy, not this is what joy is. Well, the burning, the hardship, the trial, and all that kind of stuff, like, it's not a sadistic thing. Like you're not some kind of psycho. You're not some kind of what do they call it, sadomasochistic. I don't know what that word means. That's probably not what I'm trying to say. It sounds perverted just saying it, but I've heard that like that somewhere. I've watched somebody smarter than me use words that I don't know. You don't enjoy getting punched in the face, okay? Like, you know. Like you see that lady, she's all messed up. She's all, yeah, it's a good fight. You know, her lips all, it's a good fight. You know, we had fun. You know, we did what we had to do. I'll be back for some more. You know, battered, bruised. You know what I mean? But she endured the trial. You know what I mean? And there was this moment of joy. You know what I mean? When you with the belt, you know what I mean, or whatever it is. You know, when you got the toddler in the car seat without like choking him or whatever. My sister always says, "Well, God makes it cute so you don't kill him." Anyway, as you're growing into this stuff, you know what I mean? You'll see some of these people that are immature, and then you see some of these other people that are mature. Strive for that. How did this person become mature like that? When you see something admirable, how did they get there? And overwhelmingly, in my thought process right now, for the 4 seconds I thought about that, overwhelmingly you'll find that the people have milestones in their life where they were joined. You know, like you graduated high school. You know, like the woman has the baby. It says she immediately forgets the pain because she has the baby. That's what it's talking about. You know what I mean? And we need to realize the English definition of the word joy is a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. You know, she's all sweaty. You know what I mean? She just passed the pineapple through the lemon. You know what I'm saying? Like, bro. And she just cried and sweating and happy and got the kid. Yeah. Okay. Step 2 on this deal. What does God want me to do? How do I know that I'm suffering inside His will? Well, am I doing what I'm supposed to do for my life, for my plan? How do I figure that out? Okay, well, we're all supposed to read. All right, so like we clearly see in the book of Acts, he says, tell them to don't drink blood and don't eat strangled meat. We will place no further burden upon them. This is after Jesus died, come back, left again, sent the Holy Ghost, all that. Somewhere about the Holy Ghost showing up. Paul's like, you know, doing his thing. He got saved. They're talking about it. You know, some Gentiles have got the Holy Ghost at this point. James, Jesus' brother, they're talking with him in Jerusalem. You know, Jesus said, you know, if you walk in love, you will naturally fulfill the law. And so, what is the law? What is love? You know what I mean? He says, if you love me, you'll follow my commandments. But one of the commandments is to stand up in front of everybody and tell them, like read it, like stand in front of everybody and read the law to them so that they know what the law is. Because back then they could not read. Okay, so like I should read the law to my family. I'd be like, this is what the Bible says, cut and dried, here it is. You know what I mean? And then I could take them on a journey through examples of people who got it right, got it wrong, and, you know, think about this stuff. All that's a various trial. You know what I mean? I want you to go to your family reunion, stand up in front of everybody, read 613 laws. See how it goes. You know what I mean? They're like, are you Democrat or Republican? And just like a fight breaks out at Thanksgiving. You know what I'm saying? So like, that's going to be a trial. You know what I mean? But you're inside of God's will. And you're suffering to do God's will in your family. When you do that, you can count that as a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. Does that sound like a feeling of great pleasure and happiness? No. But you let one of them get saved. You know that that's planting the right seeds in the right place at the right time with the right people, part of God's will and plan for your life. You know you're supposed to do that. Jesus said, if you love me, you would do what I told you to do. What did he tell you to do? Well, if you go back in the beginning, he clearly says, but then he gives examples of, and then throws the grace out there. You know what I mean? Well, if you look at that, and you say, here's all this stuff, and you're real official, it's like this, it's like that, blah, 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 blah. And then you go, and you say, hey, here it is like this is the way it plays out, and adds up, here's this, here's that. Cut and dried, here's very clearly defined boundaries. If we stay in the lane, we won't get run over. If we get out of the lane, here's just grace. You know, we'll put the bumpers up on the side while we're bowling. So the backside of this deal, or in the midst of this deal, you will feel like you're doing right by God. And you'll feel like you're getting persecuted by the world. And the feeling towards God, you know, you can almost like, you can put that on a scale. You know, how afraid of people, how afraid of God, how, you know, people pleasing, how God pleasing. You see what I'm saying? How you can test via that scale where you're at. You know what I mean? Am I not witnessing to these people because preconceived notions? Do I know enough about the subject matter to actually talk about it and then like tell me what I don't know type of deal? You know, I love my brother and I want someone to tell me when I'm getting it wrong. I actually want that. I really do. Because that makes me a more effective tool for God to use. And, you know, while I'm being used by God, while I'm being used by God, you know, you gotta get your foghorn leghorn voice every now and then. My God, let me tell you. So as I'm doing this or whatever else like that, and I see where I can help. You know what I mean? Like, you'd be amazed what you can do just juicing everybody up to walk in their path. You know what I mean? Just juice them up a little bit. Be like, hey man, you know, when they went to the deal, they're preaching in Jesus' name, and then the Sanhedrin, you know, the local police and everything, they got them all caught up, and they said, "Hey, you can't be doing this," and they beat them down. They told them to knock it off, and after that, they left, and they were rejoicing that they had been counted worthy to receive a beating. You know what I mean? Like laying up treasure in heaven, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you're going to suffer on this deal. You know what I mean? Like you gotta crack a few eggs to make an omelet. You know what I mean? That chicken's like watching you take its egg. There's suffering. I mean, it's just the way it goes. It's the way it goes. I mean, there ain't none of that on the new earth. So you got to have enough see-through all the way to the yonder. And the joy is our strength. Does it make it easier? No. Does it still hurt? Yes. Will you get used to it? Somewhat. But then you got to remember to keep your heart tender. So you're going through this deal and you're just like beaten down over and over and over and over and over and over. Especially like law enforcement. You know what I mean? A lot of people have an ill towards law enforcement due to the way some of them act. I don't think anybody ever joined law enforcement because there's some kind of sicko that just wanted to throw their weight around. I guess there might be a couple, but the overwhelming majority like want to help people. They be there in people's time of need or whatever like that. And then over time they get jaded. You know what I mean? There's like this bitter root that sets in. The joy thwarts that. The joy thwarts that. A feeling of great pleasure and happiness. Joy. That is the strength that will overpower the bitter root and keep you rooted and grounded in love. Because I love God, I can take the toilet paper into the horrific crime scene of a bathroom so that lady didn't have to go in there. Sparing my sister that trauma. And I mean, dude, it was bad enough. Yeah, like if you seen it, it was, yeah, that's a mild way of putting it. Anyway, we can't say that suffering is joy. They just leave it there. I mean, we just can't. And I'm probably talking too much on it right now. I'm probably making this too long or whatever. But the obedience. Okay, so I know God wants me to do something. Like I got a one-word plan for eternity. All situations, obedience. How in the world am I going to build it to the point of being obedient? You know, with various trials, obedient in my food choices, obedient in following the law, knowing what the law is, knowing when it's appropriate to lie. Did you know it's appropriate to lie sometimes? You know what I'm saying? Like in the preservation of life, I just read Joshua, and the harlot. You know, here's this town of Jericho. You know what I mean? And then it said like nobody will raise that town back up. You know, and then I remember there's a welding shop named Jericho by where I live, and that guy had so much going on, and dude, he had all the family problems. That was the curse of Jericho. I was like, wow, they didn't actually read this story before they named that place Jericho. Like, what are you going to name your business? Oh, Jericho. Okay, yeah. And growing up, like, I wasn't a Bible studier or anything like that, so I was just like, oh, yeah, Jericho, you know, they weld stuff. Anyways, and when I say weld stuff, they, like, manufacture a few hundred oil refineries that's in the Middle East right now. Like, it's actually a huge, enormous thing, and tragic family situations ensued, and some persist to this day. It's, yeah, I just yesterday, like, I'm reading that, oh, this, that, and the other, a curse upon this place, and I'm like, Jericho, and I'm like, oh, man. You know, and just seeing that for me personally, seeing what I've known, and then reading this, and then seeing how they lined up, I'm like, okay, yeah, the Bible's even right there. Okay, so that gives me trust. So as I read this thing, and it keeps working out, it keeps working out, it keeps working out. Do it this way, this is what you get. Good or bad, don't matter. You know what I mean? If it says, you know, if you lie, cheat, and steal, you're going to jail. I've lied, cheated, and steal, I'm wound up in jail. You know what I mean? Be righteous, do right, blah, 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 whatever. This is what you'll get. Righteous, do right, blah, 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 whatever. Boom. That's exactly what happened. Over and over and over and over. So now, I remember being on the roof talking about, come on, Spine, just one more day. And we would challenge each other, man. In Oklahoma, roofing, we'd be standing around drinking beer about midnight. And one guy'd say, oh, well, I worked 17 hours today. Another guy said, well, or one guy'd say, I worked 12 hours. The other guy said, I worked 15 hours. The other guy's like, I worked 17 hours. You know what I mean? And they were taking pride in the enduring of the roof. You know what I mean? I moved to Texas. These guys were pissed off. I didn't pay them the hour it took to drive over there. I'm like, are you serious right now? I'm like, dude, we were on the roof for 5 hours. He's like, well, yeah, but you picked me up at 7 and I didn't get back until 3. I'm like, okay, but we were on the roof for 5 hours. I owe you 5 hours of working. No, you owe me from 7 o'clock till 3 o'clock. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, if we're counting drive time, here's your pay for the day. Well, this is the same amount that you said. Yeah, I know. You're making less per hour now. Because I hired you to work. I didn't hire you to ride. And you're fired. So, anyway, I think the way it goes. I mean, you give somebody $250 for the day, and they work 5 hours. I mean, is that enough? Is that enough? You know what I mean? Is it? I mean, it's enough. Let me throw that out there. It's enough. You know, $250 a day. It is what it is. I don't care if you had to ride in the truck or not. Yeah. Anyways, so going from Oklahoma to Texas, you're like, oh, yeah, oh, we worked from 7 to 5. That was 10 hours. I'm like, dude, we worked for 5 hours. We sat in traffic. We went and ate at a buffet. That's not work. You know what I mean? Like, we're at the China buffet for an hour and a half. Dude, we went to the dump afterwards. You know what I mean? We sat in traffic. You know what I mean? And they're just crybabies. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was a culture shock for real. Still is, man. Still is, big time. But knowing the things about God and reading that, I can get it in me. Seeing the examples, I get it in me. And then a conscious choice to look for God in my daily life. Look back at the end of the day and try to see where God guided and directed your day. Make a mental note or write it down. If you write your prayers down and then go back and write the answer. You know, you have these questions, write them down. Seek it out in the Bible. Write the answer down. You know, when you're studying. And it's like, do this and don't do that, you know. Write that on the tablet of your heart. And then the trial comes and you act appropriately. And that will give you a feeling of joy and satisfaction. Like, you know, one time, I've told this on camera before, this is a perfect example. I'm driving, I went to work, and this lady was really rich, and she had a house in a neighborhood in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Now this, you got like a road, a house. The roads go in this way, and then the ocean comes in this way, and then there's like a house on either side of the canal, house on either side of the road. So you got road, canal, or road, canal, whatever, mansions. And these are big houses in South Florida, right? And this lady, she said she's Christian and everything. And they had a coral reef cut into bricks, and that was their fireplace. And it was a big fireplace. You could put 18-inch up to 36-inch into this thing. And I mean, the hole for the fire was like that, and then it was like huge on either side, and then tapered and went up the wall, all in coral reef. I was like, they harvested the coral into bricks. Wow. How much do you think that cost? Like, it was literally illegal to replace a piece that broke off. Glued the pieces together. Put it back on like some straight redneck stuff. I mean, like, literally the glue said crazy glue on the side of it. Glued these rocks back together, stuck them in the hole. Because you can't get a replacement. Oh wow, that's great or whatever, blah blah. Big time money. And we do some work or whatever like that. I roof the house, some other stuff. And it's funny too, because you pull into the parking lot, and the roof is right here, and the swimming pool is right there. They say it's okay to swim. And I was jumping off and doing cannonballs into the deal. And Dennis, the guy I was working for, his name was Dennis, not Dennis from the house, different dude. He said he was pulling in, and he just see this big splash come up, and the splash was coming up above the garage roof. He see the splash. You see the splash again. He's just sitting in the parking lot, and he's just like, what's going on? You know, and he's the contractor, so he's like, he's got all these things in his head, like, what the hell's going on? He walks back there, and he sees me jump in that water, and and we did kind of drag it out, and anyways, months go by. They called me back over there, and this lady had, I've talked to them about Jesus. They was really receptive. They were good people, but they was kind of uppity, and they like talk shit. They talk down to. I wouldn't say that they was racist, but if you didn't speak good, clear English, they treated you different. You know what I mean? It wasn't the race. It was, I'm annoyed you don't understand what I'm saying. I really believe that. And how often is that misconstrued? Anyway, so I'm over there, and somebody poured cement down her toilet. The contractor or whatever was there, did some stuff, and then I'm over there, and I got this chipper, and I'm chipping this thing out, and I hear her talking all crazy to one of the other workers. And I walked in there, and I was like, Billy, I said, you can't be talking to people like this. And she's just like super offended instantly. How dare you talk to me in my house this way? I said, Billy, you can't be talking to people like this. I said, this is why I'm over here jackhammering all this stuff and taking your toilet up. It's because you're treating people like shit. If you call yourself a Christian, you need to act like a Christian to everybody. And then you won't have problems like this. And she's like, or whatever. And anyway, I'm working, go to lunch, get a phone call. Hey, what the hell's going on, Skip? This on the phone. I gotta fire you, dude. Like we can't be talking like that to the homeowner or where else like that. And I told him what happened. He's like, yeah, you're right. I'm sure she knows you're right, but I gotta fire you or she's gonna fire me. Cool. I understand. So I'm headed out to the truck. Man, I got bills due. I'm on the run, man. Like, I ain't been on the road for probably 4 years. And I'm just like, you know, I had a warrant or whatever like that. And I knew if I went in, then my wife, she was like suicidal, man, the first wife. It was right after my son died. And then, like, I answered an ad in the paper and said, roofing must be willing to travel. Got in the truck. Turns out these dudes are like, you know, talking about, oh, we need some paraphernalia. And I'm like, well, you get some zigzags right there. He's like, oh, that's not my crank of choice. I'm like, oh, fuck. And then, like, they're bagging Beth, driving in this truck, headed to Florida, you know, peeking out the window, talking about that white van still back there, man. I'm just like, dude. We stopped to get gas or whatever. I hop in the other truck with the boss man. I'm like, I ain't riding in that truck. You know, me, I ain't gonna ride. So I'm just like, hey, I ain't riding. Yeah, I'm riding in this one. Like, make some room. Don't care. This is where I'm riding. They're like, all right. Yeah, he knew. Anyway, we get down to Florida and everything, and then, you know, some years go by. They end up coming back to Oklahoma, and then I got a job with Dennis working on I roofed that Hilton over there on Singer Island. He was working on that roof and did some remodeling there, and that's where I got involved with McBride Resources. Dennis McBride was his name. Anyway, I probably shouldn't say that. Anyways, so now, like, you know, I got bills due and all sort of kind of stuff. And I'm driving home, and I'm like, man, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? And it's like a Friday, you know what I mean? And, like, you know, it's like, hey, you're fired, you're beat. And it's like, no check coming. You know what I mean? Like kick rocks. You know what I'm saying? Like I just ended his gravy train dearly. Like I think just the roof on that house was like $700,000. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not exaggerating. I think the roof on that house was $700,000. Anyway, I'm just driving. I'm like, man, well, there's this, there's that. There was like 4 other things going on, and I'm just like, you know, how am I going to make this work or whatever? It's like that. And I hear in my head, and it sounded like a black guy, I got you, man. And I just started laughing. You know, I knew it was God. He's like, I got you, man. You know what I mean? And I just started laughing and everything. And I got like a 45-minute drive home. No driver's license, nothing. You know what I mean? I'm just driving. It's like, it's a Mazda B2200 little pickup, right? I'm just cruising at 5 speed. And I'm just laughing or whatever like that. And then I go up to the house, go up into the apartment, and unlock the door, open that. There's the first wife. She's standing there. And she looks at me. She starts smiling because I'm laughing and everything else like that. She's like, oh, well, how's it going? And I was like, oh, I got fired. Did this happen? Did that happen? And I didn't get no check. And this, that, and the other, whatever. And she's like, oh, my God, what are you laughing about? I was like, God said to me, I got you, man. And it sounded like a black guy. And we just both laughed. And, dude, I had one of the best weekends of my life. Just chilling. You know what I mean? And I used to smoke weed back then, too. You know what I mean? So, like, we were just, like, kicking it. You know what I mean? And, like, had a great weekend and everything. Monday morning, like, I'm a little hungover, to be honest with you. And I wake up 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, which is sleeping in for me. And 7, 8 o'clock. By 9 o'clock, I had a different job that paid more money, and 2 people called me for side jobs for the Skips Home Services. You know what I mean? And that week, I made enough money to pay all my bills probably for 3 months. That week. That was my 1 week of work. So I lost a check from working for a week. And then I more than doubled that check, which was enough to pay 3 months of bills. You know what I mean? And the joy of the Lord is our strength. And joy is a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. That's the definition. Okay? When we suffer these trials and stuff like that or whatever, I mean, if you're going through hell, keep going, right? You know what I'm saying? Just stick it out or whatever like that. But when you're talking to people in the congregation and then the kid folk, and you're giving these examples, you know, we can't throw joy under the bus, and we need to be highly accurate because it's a very critical. Okay, so how do you get to that point? You know what I mean? Where like life just keeps beating you down on a regular basis, and you're not bitter. You know what I mean? Well, the way that we do that is I say it like this: I'm built to carry it to the cross and lay it down. You know what I mean? Like all these people around me, and I'm just like watching them make these bad decisions. I gotta be like, hey, God, get these kids. Yeah. We're the bride of Christ, right? How many times you come home and your wife looks at you, hair going everywhere, she's like, you want to know what happened at this house today? You know what I'm saying? So when I get like that, by myself, you want to know what happened at this house today, God? Get your kids. Lord, get your kids. Whoever's changing the destination on this place, making this paperwork different, Lord, get your kids. Somewhere in there is humor. Somewhere in there, somewhere between tragic, trauma, and yuck. In this case, this morning was yuck. There's humble and humility and humor. And when I see this dark humor stuff, it's a way of dealing with it. You know what I'm saying? And it's part of the healing. But you got to remember, you know, like when you're making a cake, the whole cake ain't flour. You know what I'm saying? You know, you're going to need an egg and some oil, whatever. You know, if you're buying cake mix for the apocalypse to save up, make sure you get the kind that you don't have to add egg. That's your bonus gift. Because you'll see the price difference. Like one of them you got to add an egg, the other one you don't. Well, I made some yellow cake with brown frosting. The frosting was from 2018, and the cake was from 2015. And I cooked 2 cakes and made it and everything. Because I just up and decided, you know what, we're having cake for dinner. You know what I'm saying? And because I don't get to be there for special days. So I just declared it a special day in my house. And I made Tracy a birthday cake and Dennis a birthday cake. But we just had cake for dinner, cake and milk. I went to the game, like, you know, a 9 by 12 or whatever cake. And I just cut it down the middle and made 2 cuts. Like these pieces of cake are like this big. They're like, what's this all about? You know, just like, that was the day that we had the slumber party. It just felt like God's house. It felt like it was God's house. You know what I mean? And Dennis was talking about some stuff where he talked to people about God, and Tracy was talking about stuff where she talked to people about God. And of course, I don't shut up no matter what. And then that's a good reason for me to eat. It gives the others a chance to get a word in. So, anyways, I hope this helps, man. I hope this has been a joyful reminder and you got like harsh rebukes, and then you just got like, hey man, you can tune this up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And I want this to be that. You know what I mean? I want to. You know, you can adjust the jets on a carburetor and advance the timing a little bit. You know what I mean? And, you know, adjust your waste gain on your turbo and stuff like that. You can get an amazing amount of power out of a small block Chevrolet motor with a turbo on it. And you get these big Garrett turbos out of a diesel truck salvage yard, bro. Right now, where's the boost gauge? Oh, it's over here. Yeah, I'll push 26 pounds of boost right now. Just like average driving. Yeah, for real. And I don't know if you know anything about boost in a small block Chevrolet from 1984, but it is prosperous. You can really make some power in them old trucks. And if you set that wastegate to about 8, yeah, it's all you need. Anyways, I hope this video is that for, people on the internet. Or from the internet, that's how it is. But gotta work on my grammar. You know what I mean? Like, when you're cooking, man, if you'll start working with spices that heal and building blocks. So you want to look at your amino acids. That's your choices of meat, and then your the stuff that heals, like the onions, man. Like, it's great for flavor and stuff. And then, like, the difference, like, just take a bite out of an onion, man, and make your eyes water and everything else like that. Saute it in butter. It tastes like glazed sugar stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, it's amazing what an onion goes through its different steps. When I make my bags of rice, while it's cooling off, cut up an onion and throw it in there. So they're still kind of crisp, but I know I'm going to heat this back up. So when I'm heating it back up, it kind of half sautés. So then I got a decent onion. And then if I eat it cold, the onion's got crunch. So like it's spicier. And I'm probably in a hurry if I'm eating it cold. So, a little spice in my life can, help juice me up where I don't fall asleep. So that's a little more bonus tips. Get the stuff inside of you that you need. And, clearly defined words are amazing. And when the translators, I was going to throw this out there and I'll shut up. When the translators were translating what Paul wrote, count it all as joy when you enter into these various trials. They used the word joy. They were translating it into English. And the definition of joy is a feeling of great pleasure and happiness. And that's how you get there. Like, you walk in the light, and then you become the light, and then you share the light. And if you can whittle that down to about a 3 to 8 minute process, bro, like, you're doing good, because there's a million subjects. The way you do that, in my experience, call somebody. If you're good with a little, he'll give you a lot. They didn't say what. That's what I'm reading in the Bible. God forgives us the way we forgive others. Call somebody. Hey, man. Yeah, hey. Did you know God forgives us the way we forgive others? Yeah, that's what it said. I just read it right here. Here it is, chapter and verse, this and that. What do you think about that? Have a conversation. You're writing it on the tablet of your heart. You found something good. You called a buddy. You're trying to explain it to him. And that process, you're learning what it really is. You're walking out. You're being his mouthpiece. You're speaking the word into existence, into the community, into the kinfolk. And God, in his mysterious ways, through the generations, will bring up different topics at different times, in different groups, in different settings. So, some people need reached in a certain way, and some people it's a different type of way. So sometimes you got to bring up this hard-nosed stuff and it be presented, and then be presented again to the full, and then later on learn some more, and present it again. So in the role of a pastor, evangelist, whatever else like that, it's ever evolving. You know what I mean? And when you say something, and then turns out that you feel a different way about it later, go back and revisit that, and be like, hey, it was like this. Now I'm kind of leaning like that, and this is why it seemed that way, and then now this is why it seems this kind of way, and there's overlap in the two. So I needed it to be like this for me specifically, for this group specifically, so that they can entertain this over here a month, a year, 4 years later, whatever it may be. And just watch that in the congregation and see the I want to use the word rise to power. It's maturing. Okay? So they had a form of religion but no power. Okay? So the rise to power is the requirement of the understanding. You know what I mean? It says, look to the ant, O sluggard. The obedient. Obedience. Obedience. At all times, obedient. Alright. Raquel, that's what I got to say. We'll take these medical supplies to Maryland. I'm going to go, take a nap, get a shower, start driving in circles around Washington, D.C. under martial law, or whatever the hell's going on over here. I don't know what the deal is. Like, God keeps putting me in these places. If it pops up with the stupid internet as some kind of whatever, like, I'm driving and everything, my phone's like, me, you know what I mean? And then I look on the internet, and, all the phones and everything, all the devices are going off. I'm in New York, and it's like, or I was in New Jersey, and it's like earthquake or whatever. Of course, I'm driving a truck, and some bitch bouncing all the time anyway. If there's an earthquake so bad that I notice while I'm driving down the highway, like, it's bad. Yeah. The new Madrid fault has just become the new, like, 8th sea of the world, or whatever. Anyway, I just keep finding myself in these places, It doesn't matter if it's a fire in California, a flood, whatever, I'll find myself just right there in the area, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. It's I said I was going to take over the earth for Jesus everywhere I go. He keeps putting me in these positions, so I know I'm supposed to be doing something. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So pray that I figure that out. Raquel, go get them.